No, I know. No, I can't find out how to close the blinds, which is a bit awkward. Okay, all our recordings are running. If you'll excuse if you, I'm hoping, I was trying to angle it so that everyone could actually see Diana, our third guest. She's dialed in from Asia. Okay. Hello, everyone, welcome to our opening event of 2024 for Women in Aid and Development. As always, we celebrate International Women's Day, or we mark International Women's Day as well. Yes, so I should probably start out with our welcome to country, as is also tradition, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. We're on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'm going to pay my respects to elders past and present. So today's topic, as I'm sure you're all aware, we're going to talk about economic empowerment for women, with the theme, or the topic for us, the theme for this year for International Women's Day being about economic empowerment. It's about inclusion. It's about inspiring women to find that empowerment. So count her in is the topic. Accelerating gender equality through economic empowerment. So women's economic empowerment is the key, as we all know, to a gender equal world. Because when women are given equal opportunities to earn and to lead and to learn, communities then thrive. We just know, especially in the developing countries, that communities revolve around the women in those communities in whatever role they're in. So ensuring women and girls are given equal opportunity to build those capabilities and to strengthen that capacity for them to learn and to earn and to lead, that's just essential. So like I say, welcome to everybody, especially to Diana, who is joining us from overseas, and to our two guests, Morgana and Angela. Okay, I should actually also say a special welcome. Mark, thank you for joining us. Mark's the CEO of WiAD, which is the organisation hosting Angela here in Australia at the moment. We're very lucky she's actually here. She's only here for 2 weeks, so we grabbed her at the right time. So they brought her in. So I'll start by introducing everybody. We'll start from my immediate left with Morgana. Morgana is we're the CEO now of Care Australia. I had interim, but I figure we've moved past that.
Wow, no, it is actually interim.
It is interim, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the interim CEO of Care Australia. Extensive experience, needless to say, in the for-profit sector. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for purpose.
Sorry.
And for purpose.
Okay, interesting. Okay. More than 15 years working with many of the larger international NGOs as well as overseas. So Plan, Amnesty, Save the Children, and then similarly in Australia, Plan and Save the Children, as well as Fred Hollows Foundation, Child Fund, World Vision, and even AVI. I volunteer. So obviously absolute wealth of experience and the knowledge you gain with that, which is why she's such a valuable speaker for us, guest speaker. Angela Adero. Am I saying that right? Adero? Yeah. Like I say, we're very fortunate to have Angela here because, like I say, she's visiting Melbourne from Kenya. Yeah. Co-founder and CEO of Rio Fish Limited. Entrepreneur based in Kenya, dedicated advocate for social change, actively working to address and eradicate, and this was very interesting for me, the sex for fish trade, which I found a really enlightening, as it were, awakening concept, which afflicts a lot of the coastal communities in that region. And as I said, Rio Fish, the organisation she's founded, is a WiAD Kenya venture, yeah?
Went through the program. We played a very small part.
With, as Mark might tell us later, is an international, WiAD being an international organisation that supports early stage social impact ventures and locally led solutions to local problems, which is something we all support in development. And Diana, you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Apologies for those who can't see Diana. It's just face everywhere. I thought it was important she see the other speakers as well. So Diana's joining us from Bangkok, where she's based. So she works with for Good Return. So she's their Asian regional manager, leading in strategy and partnerships to achieve financial well-being for marginalised communities, especially obviously women. Good Return being a not-for-profit organisation working across the Asia Pacific region, enabling women and their families to access opportunity and build financial security. I'd also like to add, next to Mark is Bettina Baldeshi. I'm just acknowledging the senior managers in the room. But Bettina's the CEO of International Women's Development Agency, IWDA, which we're all familiar with. So thank you very much for coming. It's really good to have you here too.
I have stepped down, just so you know, I stepped down in January, so
Oh.
I'm the ex-CEO. Just,
That's all right, we won't worry.
I don't know, look, I look very different, I'm very relaxed.
It's very- The stress is great. The stress
Have you
is
had
gone,
much
pushback from the men in the sector?
So much. I mean, there's so many times I felt like I want to give up, but surrounding myself with strong women
Mhm.
who are focused and, we know what we want, I've been able to just hang in there. And we've also been able to mentor other young women who are getting into the space, and not just aquaculture, into other male-dominated fields. So I'm happy to say that, surrounding ourselves with strong, like-minded women, we're able to stay put and also bring other women on board. Now, after the initial WiGAP mentorship program, there was something called WiHA, and I was among the first group of women to benefit from that. And really the focus on this was preparing you for investment. So there's the idea of, okay, you're focused on your business model, then that's preparing you for investment. And with that, I was exposed to another group of women who some, very strong women, some of whom I'm in touch with up to today. And we have really, I think, come from far. So right now I can say people are looking for us and interested in investing in us as from, before when we had, you're out there looking, trying to talk to people. But right now people actually reach out to us and, talk to us. And I know there's a program that's coming up called Y Capital, and we're really, we look forward to that. And
Yeah.
we believe that we should be able to benefit from that, because what it does is that it puts, women are struggling to raise finance.
Mm.
And again, you'd think it was just the African woman, but I was surprised to know that, many women are.
Yeah.
Last week at SunCalp, some event that happens in Africa every year, where you meet investors and entrepreneurs, I met a lady with whom we went to a different accelerator some 3 years ago. She's Dutch and she works in Indonesia, and she was telling me she's struggling to raise $300,000 US. And I always looked up to her as someone who's really doing well. And it made me, I was sad, because if I look up to her and she's struggling, I mean, what about me? But also made me feel like it's not a personal thing, it's not an Angela thing. I mean, it's a woman thing that's struggling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Y Capital, I think, is a very good opportunity for women, because they prepare you, first of all. And again, I don't believe in just giving someone money, prepare them so that when they receive that money, it actually makes a difference, in what they're doing. So it prepares you, it gives you money, like interest-free loans. And when you're able to pay back this money, then what it means is that other women can also benefit from
Yeah.
this. And for me, if I get that money, repay it back, it builds my credit, then I have now other opportunities, open to me. Now, right now, where I'm looking at, we've proven our concept, we're doing what we do. So with an injection of capital, then we'll be able to buy catfish. So we deal in tilapia. We grow tilapia, we aggregate tilapia, and that's what we mainly sell. Tilapia is very popular in Kenya. Yeah, the only thing is that there's very little you can do with it. So right now we sell it fresh whole, we fillet, we gut and scale, we sun dry, we smoke. But we've been looking at now other high margin products, such as sausages, burgers. So we actually are developing fish sausages and fish burgers, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, an injection of capital will help us to be able to buy more fish from the farmers, but specifically get into buying catfish from those farmers, and then prepare these value-added products and sell them on to people in urban areas who can pay a bit more.
Okay.
So that it helps the business grow. And also, a lot of these women do not have access to cages or water bodies where they can put cages. It'll allow us also to work with women who are inland and just can do pond farming. Pond farming is very good with things like catfish.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are targeting, this is a model we want to use to target land-based farming as well as cage farming. We started with cage because that's what we are doing, but we support both. And we're looking to scale it even right up to the coastal side of Kenya, because where there's mariculture and the different species of fish being grown. I've spoken so much, I didn't even answer the question.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Just a quick follow-up there. When you were talking about, when you were feeling the pressure from the pushback and everything, that you had a lot of strong women around you, had those women gained that strength and become empowered that way because of the program and because of the path you were taking them on and you're all going on together, or had you particularly noticed that these were naturally strong women in their own way, innately strong women who had stepped up?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
There's those people who just admire you because of what you're doing and you're out there, so they'll come and speak to you and tell you, I'm also doing this in the aquaculture space. And then as we went, so we formed a group kind of. So as we went out to events, we meet other women, introduce each other to other women. Then there's those young women who are trying to venture into those male-dominated areas. And they're looking up to you because they hear what you're doing, but in their own way, they're strong women. So we've been able to get a mix of women who are already, in the space, and some who are coming in just because of what they see as, something that was impossible, but now it's possible. So it started off with people who are like in our space, and then grew out to people, them bringing also other people on board. And yeah, so it's really grown from just the aquaculture space to just women. Both young women and older women.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's fascinating. Okay, now we can see the screens and everything. It's really good. I was just thinking we'll go to Diana now. Thank you for your patience, Diana. Now I'm just running, I'll actually turn the screen around so people can actually see Diana. Might be, it's nice for her to see the other guests, but it might be nice for people to actually see Diana's face. There we go. Everyone see Diana? Just for now. Sorry. So her shoot face, she can't actually see her, Morgana and Angela for the moment. So Diana, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Jill.
Great. Okay. So if I can just get you to give us an outline of the work that you do with Good Return, that all the Good Return does particularly in your region, and especially having heard the stories from the other two guests, the sort of work in terms of business, I guess, development and economic empowerment for the region you're in.
Sure, thanks, Jill. And hi, everyone. I think I'm tonight's, resident floating head. So it's great to see you, and I really hope to see you in person sometime. So to give a bit of a background about what Good Return does, so our mission is to enable those who are marginalized and excluded to achieve economic empowerment. And we really do that through 3 programmatic areas. So the first is financial capability. So we do face-to-face training, we develop apps and public awareness campaigns to really build people's knowledge, skills, and confidence in using money and financial products with a real focus on women. And second, we have sustainable and inclusive finance. So what we do is we have an e-learning platform as well as technical assistance to help financial institutions in Asia Pacific to really just improve their gender and disability inclusion. First of all, internally with their staff and then with their clients, because what we see is that, if organizations, particularly financial organizations, are not thinking in a gender inclusive or disability inclusive way, then that's how they actually exclude people from being part of our financial system and getting access to the money that they might need to grow their business, like what Angela was talking about. So finally, our third program area is access to finance. So that's where we stimulate finance through loans and also loan guarantees That's to people living in Asia, Pacific, and also in Australia. We work with Indigenous communities, and that's really about, generating jobs for people in the communities that they live in. And I was really interested to hear about, Angela talking about her work as well. I think, what I'll just mention as well, which you as development workers might find interesting and unique, is that Good Return holds an Australian financial services license. So what that means is that we can manage investments and stimulate business growth through investments. And we can also accept tax deductible donations that support our programmatic work. So for example, working with financial institutions on their gender inclusiveness. Focusing in on Asia. So I think what I'll just mention is one success that we see is our Impact Investment Loan Guarantee Fund. So this is a fund that aims to stimulate loans to agricultural businesses, particularly women-owned businesses. And aquaculture is one of those value chains that we work in, like what Angela was talking about. So we do this by partnering with local financial institutions. So that could be a bank, a fintech, a microfinance institution, and that institution might say, we're hesitant to invest into this business. Agriculture is risky, and this woman doesn't have much of a track record, and so that's where we say, okay, look, we're going to share in that risk with you. We believe in this woman's business, so we will guarantee part of her loan. So that's one of the initiatives that we have, and our loan guarantee has now supported over 500 small to medium enterprises, and 90% of those enterprises are women-owned. So that just gives you a bit of a flavour of what Good Return does, and one of the projects in Asia as well. I'll stop there and see if there's anything else that you wanted to touch on, Jill.
I just wanted to ask you, and following that up, I'm just trying to get a picture of, in terms of the way you're outlining it. So would most of the women's businesses that you deal with, do you find the bulk of them are regional or rural, or bulk of them are actually small businesses in towns and cities?
Yeah, good question. So far the Loan Guarantee Fund is active in Cambodia and Indonesia. And the loan sizes we're looking at are, say around 5,000 to 100,000 Australian dollars. And those kinds of businesses under the Loan Guarantee Fund are usually rural businesses because they are working in agriculture. So, you need that agricultural land. And, what we find there is that it can be particularly women in rural areas who, don't have access to collateral. So they might not be on the land title, for example, and that can be a real barrier to them getting a loan. So yes, under the Loan Guarantee Fund, mainly agricultural businesses in rural areas, and they're, providing jobs for people to stay, where they want to live in those rural communities rather than having to migrate to the city.
So do you find one of the issues that might crop up, or one of the barriers might be their economic literacy, if that's who you're dealing with, women who are literally trying to start out or are trying to sustain some sort of even a small business? Does that tend to be one of the hurdles that you have to get past, their economic literacy?
Yeah, definitely, Jill. I think, in terms of people's economic and financial literacy, around the world, right, that most people say that they don't know that much about how the financial sector works, or, there's all this confusing terminology when you try and use a financial product. So yeah, I think that is one of the other big areas that we work in, on, helping people to understand how the financial sector works, and how investment works in a really simple and easy to understand way. And, I think that what we find is that many times women, say, oh, I'm not the one that deals with numbers, or, maybe it's my husband that does the finances. And when we do financial literacy training programs, then there is that shift that, yeah, you know, I can do all of this. I do understand how finance works, and that they can make the financial decisions, and be in control of the finance, which I think, you know, for us is really exciting. That it really links to, you know, if you are feeling in control of your finances and your money, you feel, you know, much more in control of your life.
Okay, all right, thanks for that, Dana. So I might ask, Angela, I might ask you similarly, how have you found in bringing these women on board and growing the business and that their level of economic literacy, in terms of, has it literally had to be start from scratch, a bit like you were saying, you yourself, in terms of the business model, you and your husband, and learning along the way? Have you found that with the women that you've taken on board in terms of the program?
Well, a lot of the women, they run businesses, like they're probably selling fish, but they can't differentiate between capital, profit, and that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say we had to start from scratch, but you had to give them a lot of support, a lot of hand holding. And some of them really find that they're very good at what they do, but just don't know how to classify what is to be classified. One thing I found that stuck out is many of them are very happy to keep money under the mattress as in form of cash, and then end up using the money. And then some of them rely on their husbands to be able to, you know, like make decisions for them financially. And some is not by choice, more of the husband forces them, you know, like they, yeah. So one thing that we've done is to bring the men on board.
I was going to say that it's a common theme in development programs, especially catering for women, is that you have to make sure the men in their lives are actually on board with it.
And so it's not an easy thing, because some of the men, you know, that it's, I mean, our society is very patriarchal. So you find that a lot of the men would not really want, they may want to, but they're worried about what will be said out there about them. So you get one or two men to take that into faith. And then when you have those men now speaking to other men, then now it's easier to get their buy-in. And we usually call those men that we get on board first, we call them our male champions.
Yeah.
And those male champions are usually very good at recruiting other male champions. And when you have the male champion on board, and the women actually thrive, the women in their life.
Yeah, very similar themes across the board, as I'm sure many of you work with or know, in that thing when you're working with in gender empowerment and gender roles and things, especially in terms of empowering women, whatever the development theme is and whatever the project is, that's really become an important element that you have to address, is the role of men in that. You just can't ignore them, because it just plays such a big role in how the success of whether women succeed in what they're doing and whether the project succeed. It's really interesting. Yeah.
You know what? In fact, when we started the cage farming, since this is my husband's home, and we have a lot of taboos around women doing boats and that kind of thing, one of the first things they said was that there's a phrase we use in Kenya. It's literally translated, it means to be sat on, like naan bread. So it's in Swahili, it says kukaliwa chapati. You know, it's like being sat on, and that's the term they use, you know, for men who are seen not to stand up for themselves. And you'd find like if somebody wanted employment or something, they would go to my husband, and then he would tell them, I'm not the boss, go and speak to Angela. So for a while, you know, after some time, they realized that he's not the person to speak to. So he sort of like handed over that role to me, and it became easier because he stood back and allowed, you know.
It's interesting how that would work though. So you wouldn't be able to step forward and say, no, don't speak to him, speak to me. He had to say, go speak to Angela. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it, the way that works? Morgana, I'll come back to you. In terms of obstacles, hurdles that are encountered by NGOs or even NFPs in encouraging women and implementing economic empowerment through programs and that, how hard is that? What sort of obstacles and barriers are we still facing even now?
That's not a controversial opinion.
You can have any opinion you like here tonight, that's fine.
I think sometimes the obstacles and barriers we face are of our own making.
Okay.
I think as a sector, we're very passionate about what we think personally is a very good theory of change and how to have impact. And sometimes I think it actually prevents us from collaborating and learning and reusing and recycling. and I appreciate every individual context is different, but sometimes we spend a lot of resource and energy recreating rather than collaborating and sharing. And I think there's opportunity that we can sometimes do more of an 80% with a reuse and have more resource and greater impact than to always build from scratch every time. So that would be my slightly controversial and challenging view. But I think it's also, having said all of that, every context is challenging because every country in which you operate has different social norms, nuances, and being aware of those and working within those. And it gets a lot to the work that we've done here around the Pledge for Change, and that tension between really truly being locally led and being able to work with those who really know that local context and get the money to those who know that local context versus that apparatus that is, relationships with DFAT, donor reporting, etc., and how you navigate those two realities.
So we'll love reporting.
Yeah, but we've got some really great stuff we've been doing, in parts of the Pacific. We've tailored some of our financial education programs that we used to run for families, and we're actually targeting the adolescent women.
Okay.
And the idea that actually, if you can get to women at that age and give them those financial management skills and that understanding young, it suddenly gives them options that go beyond just you have to be married to be financially secure. And really looking at, because within the Pacific, you're dealing with fairly small communities, and they are all different, but really trying to leverage where we've done it well somewhere and then testing it and piloting it at the location and then trying to take it more broadly.
Yeah.
We've had quite some success in that space. So.
I was going to say, you're finding that's like a generational change in terms of just with the generations, the women, and we use Pacific as an example, the women of the younger generation are far more open to the idea that they have every right to be financially independent and to pursue a career or work life in earning capacity in any way they want.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a mindset change.
But again, it's them then having the space to be able to influence the environment which they operate.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Diana, I might come back to you just quickly. I'm just wondering about the delivering, how the concept is, how new is the concept of what you're doing with communities, even through businesses, and how well is it being accepted by, once you trickle down to the communities, even though you go through organisations and that, how new is that concept and how well is it being received in terms of, I guess we might call it, well, it's financial empowerment, financial management, but also, microfinancing, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jill. I think, the concept in communities about livelihoods and income projects that are supported by development organisations is not new. And, in terms of supporting businesses, I think that that's probably what has been, the evolution there, that before it was more that development organisations might fund somebody to have a livelihood and train them in that livelihood, whereas now there is more of this shift towards businesses that are sustainable. So I think in terms of how the community reacts to that, I think that there's really, the idea that people want to be learning new skills, they want to be valued for contributing to their communities, in terms of their care work, for example, but also in terms of their economic contribution. So the money that they bring in from a business can contribute to their, sense of empowerment. And I think then that, when they have a hand in running the business and are able to make decisions about money, what we see then is that there is a growing sense of, the recognition that women can be in leadership positions, they can lead businesses. And then not just that, they can also train and mentor other women, which is really exciting. And, you know, a little bit like what I understand Angela was mentioning, that, you know, when you see one woman who's leading a business and doing well in one kind of sector or value chain, then other women in the community also see that they can be part of that, and that, you know, that business is generating employment in the community. I think that's a really important point, that businesses generate employment for others as well, and people really, you know, love that. They react well to that, and you know, that kind of creates that sense of support, community, that a business can be led by a woman, and that it can generate employment for people, and particularly women in that community. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Angela, just we'll start to wrap up a bit, but and we'll open the floor to questions for each of the three of you. I'm just interested in that you were saying before about moving even away, like moving into different products around, you know, the different fish and what have you. So are you finding that the concept that you've now developed in terms of the business is transferable to, you know, other micro industries, let's say, whether it be food, whether it be other food industries, or could you see it working for the economic empowerment for women in other small sort of, like I say, micro industries?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I find it's very transferable because, first of all, you find that many women are involved, especially in the food industry, they're involved in processing. So instead of just selling, you know, your produce from the farm as is, you can add value to it, and then sell it on, you know, at a higher value, and also you can keep it longer. Most of the produce, you know, gets spoiled after some time. So with what we're doing, and we've been able to show that, you know, women can do it, I don't see why it should be moved on to other products. I mean, friends of these women I'm talking about, there are people who are doing things like cassava, for example. So before you find, they would just sell the cassava as raw, but now they're getting that cassava. And I think there's one lady who's doing, I think it's called sorbitol or something like that. It's usually toothpaste or something. I met her, she's not even Kenyan, she's West African. Okay. Yeah, and they were just selling cassava around there and not making much money out of it. But now she's one of the largest producers of that product. Oh, yeah, it's bought up for toothpaste manufacturing, for example. So it's not sold as raw cassava, but, you know, a raw material for something else. So I strongly believe that if you show people, you know, that they can do more than what they're already doing, then definitely.
And even into non-food industries and that. So if they were into craft or art sort of thing, in terms of local cultural craft or art, anything like that, they wanted to run small businesses, the model would transfer to that sort of thing.
It would, and especially this one where women are working together in groups. I mean, in Kenya, we have this informal groups called, it's table banking groups. And those table banking groups, women just usually sit around, have, you know, chit-chat here and there and taking tea. Yeah. And then they contribute some money, which is kept in a kitty, and then it's loaned out to the members for small, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, with those kind of things, if you're together, already you're together in a group, you can actually bring your businesses together. If, you know, say you're making jewelry, handmade jewelry, and then you can, each of you produce your small items here and there, and then bring it together, and you can be able to access a much, you know, larger market where you get better value, because then we take advantage of economies of scale, because instead of me taking 3 or 4 necklaces, we can take like 100 necklaces, and it makes sense then to move it to even Australia, for example.
Yeah. I don't know. So obviously a lot of potential within what you've designed in terms of that business model.
And it's centered around these table banking groups that somehow all Kenyan women have, whether it's rural, urban, just at different levels. So you have the professionals have, you know, where they collect money and they're doing large projects. And we have a group where we're trying to build residential houses. Then those small ones, we're just lending each other things like $100.
Yeah. And just out of interest, have you noticed sort of, I don't know how to put it, like offshoot impacts in terms of out of groups of women? You often find some who are natural leaders will emerge. So you get, you know, a capacity building of leadership qualities, if you like, and how that improves in terms of the group they are and more things they take on, as well as their attitudes, whether that be towards family, whether it be towards community, whether it be towards education, whatever it is? Are you finding those sorts of qualities just as a byproduct, if you like?
And yeah, we actually have one, you know, the groups who are now farming at our site. The lady who was selected to be like the chairperson of the group, she's a widow. And one of the things I find about her, she's so aggressive because she feels like she's the only one her children have. And, you know, she told me stories about what happened to her after her husband died with it. She had small boat and, you know, it's a men who are going out to fish, they're using her boat. And, you know, she's so aggressive in a way that sometimes it just scares me. So when we got into this project, she keeps on calling me, we need to do this, we need to do that. Then she'll tell me, oh, you know, so-and-so is a very good person, you know, she can actually lead. And when you talk to these so-and-sos that she's pointing out, these are people she knows.
Yeah.
And she knows their, you know, capabilities. So we're finding that you get to know a group of, you know, number of women here and there who can be trained further, and then they're able to lead other projects. And that is something which is really coming up. And I like it because you get people, some of those people clearly you can see they're leaders. Others are a bit quiet and need to be coaxed out of it. But no, because somebody knows that they're capable and they're being important, and they're very happy not to come out and talk to other women. You know, we thought that recruiting women to get into the fishing groups, fish farming groups was going to be a challenge. We started off, I mean, the first training we had, I think we had a room of like 6-8 people and they had planned for 30. And then the next training, after we trained these women and some men, and the next training we had like 70 people. I know we're supposed to facilitate their transport to come there. And we had planned for 20. And we had to now get more money to, you know. So you find like those leaders, some of them were obvious leaders, some, you know, were just pointed out. They're bringing on more people. And in those, they even know who the leaders and who are, you know, just followers.
And there would be a trickle-down effect, I would imagine, being women into their families and like in terms of their children noticing the role models they become, as well as in their immediate communities.
You know, I always say, especially in African context, a lot of women are just, you know, what they can do is they're not allowed to be who they want to be. But once you put them in that space where they feel safe and they can speak up, you're getting, you know, some very powerful women coming up, and children are feeling very, you know, empowered. And also, you know, like those women, once they feel empowered themselves, you know, they can be at home, you know, make decisions, speak up. So we're really encouraging that thing of when you're speaking up, you're saying what you can say, something which has always been a struggle for some of these women. So I think it's a big change in the family.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy when I see these women, some of whom have not seen the inside of a classroom, can't even read or write, but they have such, you know, like strong analytical minds, mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And they're able to pass this on to their school-going kids who now, and for some reason, I think that children get the intelligence from their moms. Please don't shoot. If just given that voice to speak, you have a lot of influence on these kids that she has, who are now actually going through formal education. So there'll be more than what they would have been if she was not empowered.
So yet another example of like that trickle-down effect creating social change. It's interesting, isn't it? I'll open the floor to questions there. Thank you, each of you, Morgana, Angela, and Diana, for your input there. That's fantastic. We'll open up for questions now. Has anyone got any questions for any of our guests? Oh, come on, there must be some questions. No one's curious at all about anything. I can see a question lingering right there.
I'm in government, so I should preface it with that.
Okay.
But what do you see the role of government, I guess both Australian government, given kind of geostrategic importance of the Pacific for Australia, and then also governments on the ground?
Government or governance?
Government.
Government, okay.
And that's open for anyone.
You want to take that one, Morgan? I know.
Get out of the
It's going to be
way.
another controversial one. You can say anything you want. Nobody's job, I'm not sure. Controversial.
I think sorry,
Did you want to say something, Diana?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add in something after Morgana speaks. Go ahead, Morgana.
You go, Diana. She's worried she's going to, you know, commit business suicide.
All right, well then, yeah, thanks for offering me up instead, Morgana.
You're in Bangkok, so you're safe.
You're on the other side of the screen.
Good point, good point. I was just going to say that in terms of governments on the ground, for example, in Cambodia, you know, where I spent about 6 years living, what I would say is that I think it's really important to be working with government because of their nationwide influence. And I, you know, would say, number one, that what I find in Asia is that relationship building is so important, you know, when working with governments, because many of them have seen development workers come and go. And so there can be that, you know, a bit of hesitation at first. And then, you know, really they want to see that you're actually invested in that country, that you really, you know, you want to see the best for that country, that it's not about you and your career or, you know, your home country, let's say. And I mean, for me, some personal motivations that I have is my cultural background. So my mum is Cambodian, and I had a real, you know, cultural motivation to work in Cambodia. And I think that has helped in terms of, you know, establishing that I'm invested in the future of that country. And I think that, you know, other development workers who go, who live there or spend a lot of time there can also, you know, just really make that clear that there is a commitment to the future of that country, and that's why you want to work with them. So the relationship's important, and, you know, there are people I've worked with at the central bank for the last 8-9 years now, the same people, which is great because having that longevity means projects can happen. So I think my final point on that would be to say that we need governments. For example, we've done nationwide financial literacy campaigns with them. So the first one we did in 2016 was called Let's Talk Money, and it was 6 short, funny videos aimed at young people. And, you know, I think there was that point made maybe by Morgana that reaching out to young people with, you know, financial understanding and understanding that money is so important because, you know, we need that from a young age. And then more recently, we've also done a campaign with the National Bank of Cambodia, the central bank, called Let's Talk Money Little by Little. And that was more of a drama series, like a Korean style drama, you know, that people love watching Netflix, right? So it was more about a couple, a man and a woman who moved from the country to the city and start a business together. And then it's, you know, about the challenges that they go through in their relationship, in dealing with money issues. You know, I think we can all relate to that. So that drama series was then aired on, you know, TV, Facebook, and then we had training sessions with garment factory workers because the lead character was a garment factory worker before she starts her business. So yeah, I think, you know, we really can see that working with government can have that nationwide impact. So government is important. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Diana, that's good.
I was going to say, I think it's politicians all the way down, and even for women in power, it's not always easy. And I'm actually going to do a shout out to IWDA because I think you had a fantastic program with female politicians in Myanmar and then in Timor on the stay around mentoring with Australian politicians. That I think was incredibly powerful, particularly with what then happened in Myanmar as well, and having then Australian politicians who had an affinity with their counterparts and who had a deeper understanding of the context in Myanmar is incredibly powerful. So, you know, even at that top level, it's lonely in power, right? And women need support. But I think through government as well, there's always that one around, you know, aid budgets and that tension between direct programming and indirect programming. The one that, you know, obviously coming from my background more on the business side, the one that I've always found a bit so frustrating is, and it goes to public fundraising too, there is a huge expectation that organisations will have fantastic reporting, have great compliance, but no one will fund an investment in IT systems. So it's okay to pay for 5 people running around in Mozambique with paper and pencil capturing, survey data and whatever else, but no one will actually pay to put in place the systems that would allow us to implement our aid money more effectively. And I understand the political reasons for why that's unpalatable, but it's a real challenge for the sector. And as a consequence, having worked across so many international NGOs, this is not a single issue. It is across the board that we underinvest in the things that will actually make us run more effectively.
One of the holes I find that crops up is that when you do kind of reporting and all that, and they do put time into, how the data is gathered and like you said, all the rest of it, by the time you've got people out in the field taking out tablets with, spreadsheets on them as opposed to pen and paper, and most of them will revert to their pen and paper. It's that there's that gap in terms of that literacy, like I was saying before, that literacy in just how to do M&E, how to do any basic data gathering if we're going to use, IT systems. And so that again presents problems even at the grassroots level, at the community level. You have that problem as well. And again, that feeds back into the reporting. You just sort of have to juggle it around. Yeah, it's a huge issue. Any other questions? Comments? Sorry.
I also think it's an interesting challenge from the perspective of Pledge for Change, because we're saying we want to be more locally led and we want to have more power at the local level, but then there's also an expectation that we have to expect people don't speak English as their first language.
No.
And
People don't have computer literacy either.
no, and so we still have a system whereby we have people sitting in Australia who are basically rewriting the work, which, I don't know, how do we respect, and I think it's amazing. I don't speak a second language, and it's just very frustrating because my family is Estonian. The hills now speaking English, but I can't. No, which it's not a very useful language. I have to say. It's just a general observation. My daughter now speaks it, but no, I don't. So yeah, often we have people working on our programs who's more than bilingual, because English is not their first language, and we report to our donors in English.
And we still fall back, and I know this personally because it's what I do, is that when you get your reporting done by people on the ground, and like from people who know me know, like in Vanuatu, most of them obviously first language is Bishlama, second language is English or French, and then third is English or French. So you will get any report writing they do is fine in English, but it's very much broken, even if they can speak perfectly good English. In terms of writing a report or entries in a report, it's still, not good English. So part of the stuff I do is I get sent the report, their parts of the report, apart from the parts of the reports I do, to literally sub them, to go through and sub them as a journalist or as an editor, to go through so that they make sense to DFAT when we pass it on to DFAT in terms of the reporting. And you sort of think there's nothing wrong with that. It's not, English is not their first language, but the questions that are asked and the way they have to be answered, you think you need to make it more user-friendly, if you like. Even I understand the reasons why DFAT asks the questions they ask on these reports and what the information they want for the data collection. But again, it still stops short of being fully understood by the people on the ground and the purpose it serves, let alone the language.
Yeah,
And that's the
when you
problem.
think about, working with a local partner, they work with CARE, they work with Oxfam, or we're getting grants from USAID or from the Germans, or, and it's a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Any other comments, questions? No? All good? Okay. Any comments, final comments from you, Diana?
I think I just wanted to touch on a point that Morgana mentioned earlier, which I resonated with, which is around boards not reflecting diversity. And I was the gender focal point for Good Return for a few years. Maybe it was 7 years. I was the gender focal point, and then I became the cultural diversity focal point, which was basically a position that my Cambodian colleague Vanak and I created. So it didn't exist before. I mean, that's been really quite interesting for the last 3 years or so to work on cultural diversity. And, one positive aspect that's come out of that is now we are tracking gender as well as cultural backgrounds of people at Good Return across our staff and our board. And now we are, putting in place in board positions that, people should have a cultural or background or geographical understanding of the places that we live in and work in. And so I think that that's been quite an interesting journey for us at Good Return to really, have diversity in terms of gender and also cultural diversity. And I think that, it's still the start of it. We still have a long way to go, particularly, at senior levels and on boards. And I'm just be interested if anyone else in the room is on that journey as well. And be great if you get in touch, because I know we can really do more on that area. And so, yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Any comments on that?
Need to make a few comments. I'm not speaking as AWDA, obviously, I don't have that mandate, but I can speak to the journey that we have gone on at AWDA around this. And so it happens that Chair was part of the organization at the time. So we're just reconnecting to be here tonight. Look, I think it has to be said, it needs to be a really uncomfortable journey. If it's not an uncomfortable journey, you're not doing the deep work. And so, we could have a whole workshop around this, which I think, around this group could consider, because I think that, we still at AWDA has this wonderful woman called Dr. Salma Evelina Lawrence, who's a scholar in decolonial theory. And one of the things that she used to say really powerfully is that, localization shouldn't just be about replacing white people with brown people in white systems. And that's true of all our NGOs. Localization is one thing, decolonization is a very different thing. And so even when we're talking about the conversation about, contribution of governments and so on, the power relation there, that reporting you were talking about, that's where the crux of bringing anti-racism, decolonization conversation that needs to be in the mix and at the center. And that's really uncomfortable. That makes it really difficult for organizations to go through those processes. But if they're not, there is not really a genuine attempt to actually bring about a change, which is the one that we want to see in the world. I guess, I would summarize by saying, if we can't bring the change in our own organization we want to see in the world, what hope have we got to bring it in the world? So I think organization outside of power, and so whether it's within the organization at leadership and board level, there has to be a real significantly deep commitment that starts at the personal level. So we talk about the ecological model, the self, the organization, the sector, and you have to move through each of those steps. So anyway, I'll stop there, but I feel really passionate about the work that the sector
and it is a journey around the thing, isn't it? You're not going to achieve any of that stuff quickly.
No. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's tiring and it's challenging.
And it's not all linear in one
No.
forward direction.
No. I was going to say, it's nearly always hopefully two steps forward, one step back, as opposed to one step forward, two steps back. But yeah, there's always a backward step somewhere.
I will just do one more plug for the observership program, because
Yeah.
I do think not only for the observer do you get the experience of sitting and spending 12 months with the board, but it's also fantastic reverse education for the directors who sit on that board to realise that you can have someone who is younger, often from a diverse background, who brings exactly the kind of skills that you need around the board table, but also brings a diversity of thought.
I was going to say, we're in aid and development. We use the observership program. We've just gone through the induction of our observer for this year, which is really interesting. Yeah, and we're only a small board, but it's really interesting to, have that contribution from her and what she's able to bring to the table.
Yeah, and it's great. We've done it at CARE for the last 3 years. I've done it through Wodonga TAFE, I'm on the board, and also when I was at Info Exchange, and we've just had such a mix. Our observer last year at CARE was, she's a divisional CFO for Costa, which is a fruit and vegetable group, but her personal heritage is Vietnamese, but spent the first 11 years of her life in a refugee camp in the Philippines. And through her involvement in the observership program, she's ended up on the board of Breast Screen Victoria. She's joined our finance committee, and she's going places.
Yeah.
And I think she was always going to go places, but just getting that exposure to governance in her early 30s, I think will allow her to go even more powerful places in bigger decision-making roles that if she just kept going.
And I think it's a relatively new, from what I'm seeing, it's a relatively new concept for young women in the sector, or even just young women in business on their career path, that they can actually get into. The governance is actually also an area they should be interested in at least learning about and literally observing, literally taking part in, even if they don't see themselves as senior management or executive management. That's not what they want in their career. For them to actually learn about governance is really important in the broader aspect of their career, I think.
And it's not something that gets talked about very much. It's
No.
not this black box over there that occasionally you get, you know, a mad rush that the board talent, you know, meetings coming up, you've got to get a paper written or a
Yeah.
document done. But I would also say, you know, if you ever get the opportunity to just go, because you're presenting on a topic or whatever else, to sit in a board meeting, it's really interesting to see that intersection between the executive and the board, the kinds of questions they ask, the level they ask them at, the way decisions are made. Some boards work more effectively than others. It's just like some executives work more effectively than others. But it's quite interesting, and it's quite powerful to see it when you're younger, because then you just have a level of understanding that perhaps others don't, but allow you to do your job better, actually, as you go in your career.
Angela, any closing comments?
I want to say that if you want to counter it, two things have to happen. One is from the government side, there have to be enabling policies. For example, and we have this 30% rule, which they don't, you know, the government doesn't even follow itself. And then also you want to have, in the education sector, introduce that financial literacy. And then when it comes to regulation, have regulation that allows women, for example, to borrow money as people who do not have collateral. One of the things I've tried to do in Kenya is to include, you know, like women in inheritance. Before it was never a thing. You never used to inherit anything from your parents, but now it's really big with the new constitution. Now, from yourself, you want to be the change that you want to see. So there has to be a mindset shift. And then at Trio Fish, what we do is that we employ the gender lens, and I'm not apologetic about that.
No.
So when I'm looking for this senior roles, I always, you know, like I'm looking for a farm manager, for example. I want CVs from qualified female candidates. And if I don't get a female, then I'll employ a man. Because for the longest time, I mean, men have been doing that. So why can't I? So I'm not apologizing about that.
No, you shouldn't apologize for it. That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough.
So be the change you want to see, and that's what we do.
Well said. Yeah, very well said. Any other comments, questions? This is the, as we discovered before, excuse the wrapping. This is, Dana, I'm going to have one sent to you. I'll talk to Jade. We have a small gift for our guest speakers. Please, like I say, excuse the boxes. That's what they are. That's it. I could have probably taken them out and put them in, you know, gift bags or something, but we don't tend to do that. They're Women in Aid and Development mugs. Coffee mug. So, and you know, you're very privileged because only guest speakers get those. It's not like we give them to anybody else. So Diana, I will be sending you one.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Only
Thank you.
person in Asia that has one, I'm sure.
Thank
So, sorry. Oh, that's all right. No, thank you. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diana. Thanks for joining us. It's been really good. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Great to chat with you.
Also fitting in, Angela, thank you. We were so lucky to have you in the short time you're here, the 2 weeks that you're here. That was a very good get. So thank you very much for joining us. That's all right. So, like I say, there's more time for mingling and eating. There's also a pad here on the table. Make the things out of their things. Quotes. Anyone who has quotes around International Women's Day that you'd like to write down, you can pick any coloured pen. Just have a think about what International Women's Day means to you, because sometimes we like to publish on our Facebook page and our LinkedIn page a range of quotes from from all our guest speakers, but also from anyone who's come to the events. Just quotes around, well, for this particular one, International Women's Day, what it means to you, or what you think it's about, and just quick quotes, nothing fancy, and just maybe put your name at the end of it if you want to, with a, you know, your actual Christian name with an initial, with maybe a surname or something if you want. And also, if anyone's had a think about it, there is another page underneath for possible topics that in future events that we may hold, any topics that you think would be good to discuss. We've discussed economic empowerment tonight because of International Women's Day. Any other topics you might think would be a good forum for discussion? please note it down. Otherwise, drink, eat, chat. We'll wrap up like about 7:30, which is the way it's going to be. So we'll be winding up over the next half hour or whatever. But yes, if you'd like to mingle and network, that would be great. Diana, thank you very, very much. I'll wrap that up there.
Thanks, Jill. And maybe I'll just add in cultural diversity as a potential topic for a future discussion.
Yep, I will note that down.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much
Have
for
a good
joining
night.
us. Thanks, you
Bye.
too. Bye.